What's your name?
My name's Claudia.
How old are you?
I'm 19.
How long have you been working in the aquarium?
For a year and 4 months.
What do you do in the aquarium?
I'm an aquarium host, so it's just welcoming people, telling them all about the fish and any sort of questions they have.
What do you specialize in?
Well, we do I like to do the tours and just do the adult tours, but I do quite like the birthday parties as well, so it's a big difference between teaching children and adults, and I quite like to sort of get my mind around what I need to tell each group.
What are the types of talks that you usually do?
We do a shark talk, which tends to be sort of the most looked forward to. Then we do the Great Barrier Reef talk and Headstone talk, and then we also do dive shows, so tell people about the divers when they go in the tank.
Can you tell me more about the aquarium then?
The aquarium was opened in '98 and it was to take over the Plymouth Aquarium, which was quite small and it was sort of a whole new build, and then the shark tank was then opened a few years later, so that's an actual extension into the tank. But we are one of the only aquariums set up for sort of as a non-profit business, so we are a charity, and it is to sort of drive conservation through engagement. So it's not really just to make money out of our creatures and to display, it's to teach people and sort of show them what marine life is all about, and hopefully they'll leave with some sense of what everyone needs to do to keep, I suppose, our oceans and the planet nice and healthy.
How long does it take to clean the tank?
Depends, because it is quite spread out throughout. So siphoning, which is just getting all the bits of food and any debris out of the tank, we tend to do that about 3 times a week, depending on the amount of fish. If there's lots of fish in, you put more food in, so you have to siphon it more often. And then water changes, because we've got such a big aquarium, all the tanks are connected, so there's lots of systems, and the water changes don't need to be done as often, simply because of the volume of water. But every week the water quality is tested, so some weeks the tanks might need to be cleaned more than others, but time-wise it could take, depending on the amount of tank and the size of the tank, it could take anything from 5 minutes to about 20 minutes. So.
It's quite fast then.
Oh yeah, so just the siphoning is really, really quick, and then the water change is all done sort of mechanically. It's just basically switching some valves on and off and some switches, and we've got pumps that do that for us, so we're constantly pumping in seawater from outside who gets filtered to go into our tanks. So there's always water coming in and out.
So how many liters of water does the average tank here contains?
Oh, it varies. So our big shark tank, that is 2.5 million litres of water. So that's one of the big, I think the biggest tank in the UK, so it's really, really big. And it's about the 2nd largest in Europe. And then we've got little small tanks that only take about 100 litres, so in our biozone area. And then some that take 1,000, it really does depend. But sort of the ones that you see when you come in at Plymouth Sound, the sort of average size ones that you might have at home, that would be about 1,000.
What do the divers do?
The divers go in there mainly for cleaning, and then depending on the tank they will do some feeding as well, just checking up on fish, making sure everyone's nice and healthy, check if there's any signs of disease, or if anyone's particularly skinny they might take it out. And sometimes just for medical attention, so they will sometimes just jump in there to get any of the sick fish out, or babies that might be born in the tank.
What about the sharks? Aren't they dangerous?
No, the sharks is actually quite easy. It's the shark tank, we actually allow volunteer divers into it, because really all we have to do is we need to have 3 divers in there, so 2 to get on with the work and 1 which is called a guard. And the guard will just sort of have a PVC pipe and we'll just keep an eye out for the sharks, make sure they don't get too close, which does rarely happen. If it does happen, just taps them on the nose and the sharks will go away. So it's the Great Barrier Reef tank is a tank where you have to have a dive master and you have to be a member of staff to dive in, because the turtle is considered more dangerous to the divers than the shark is.
What is your favourite part of the aquarium?
Well, that's kind of hard to tell. I know I quite like the Great Barrier Reef tank, but I think it's because I've known that's kind of my speciality is the Great Barrier Reef animals. I know quite a lot about them, but I do like sort of underneath when you go under the shark tunnel and you're kind of surrounded by water. It gives you kind of a real feeling of what it's like being in a submarine. Well, to be honest, not a lot of people have the chance to do that in their lifetime, so it's kind of cool being able to pretend you are in there.
What's your favourite animal?
My favourite animal would be the octopus, so I think they're absolutely amazing. So any type of octopus, I don't really discriminate between the giant octopus and the common octopus, they're both equally as amazing.
Can you tell me more about the octopus then?
Well, they're about as smart as an average dog, so they are quite intelligent, and you do have to play with them like you play with dogs, because if they get bored they will try to escape, and they've got no bones. So a giant Pacific octopus, which is fully grown, which can be about sort of 4 meters in arm span, it can fit through the whole about the size of a tennis ball. So what we do, they have to have quite sort of specific tanks, so a lot of aquariums will actually put carpet around the top of the tank because it can't stick onto carpet. We just use a padlock because she can't really do maths, so they're not that intelligent. And yeah, they're just amazing, and they've been around for sort of hundreds and hundreds of years, and they've evolved from one of the oldest things in our planet, and yet they're so advanced because they're invertebrates, so they're really quite amazing.
What kind of enrichment do you have for the octopus then?
For the octopus, she's kind of a lot. Basically every morning we all get really attached to the octopus because they pretty much are like dogs. So everyone, as soon as they've got a chance, we're playing in there, we're putting our hands in, we play tug of war, so we let the octopus grab onto our arms and they sort of pull it and actually kind of chases it around. And then at feeding time, which is 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday and Fridays, put the food either inside a screw top lid jar, so it has to unscrew the lid, or inside a little sort of pipe maze, so that she has to get into the maze to actually get to the food, so she's got to squeeze through small holes. And then the giant octopus, her favourite toy is the lobster trap, because in the wild, if they see any sort of lobster traps, they will get into them, eat whatever's been caught in there, get a nice free meal, and then just walk back out again. And she loves it so much that after we feed her that, she will actually sleep inside it for the whole night, so she gets very attached to that. It's kind of a bit of a fight to get her out of the tank again.
Can you tell me more about the turtle that you have?
The turtle, she's got snorkels. She's a log-headed turtle, and she was washed up ashore in Cornwall in 1990 with another sort of batch of loggerhead turtles, or probably brothers and sisters. And then, because she'd been in cold water for so long, she was actually found that she was blind, so we decided to keep her in captivity, because only being about that size, it wasn't really fair to put her back in, and she'd probably be eaten within sort of a day or two. Then after being taken into captivity and vet checked and everything, we found out she had epilepsy, so she's the only turtle, as far as we know, that has got epilepsy, because obviously if in the wild they've got epilepsy, if they've got a fit they will just drown themselves. So obviously she was not fit to be returned back into the wild, so we've had her, I think, for as long as we've been open, about that long.
Have there ever been any incidents when maintaining the tanks?
Well, when maintaining, there can be sometimes incidents, as in sort of someone forgets to turn things off and will flood the area, so it doesn't actually affect the tank, it just sort of affects everyone as it kind of got wet feet. But it did happen that 2 years ago, our big Eddystone tank, we did have sort of an issue with it, and the generator that keeps the tank sort of running and the water coming in and out, it was a storm, so that there was a power cut and that got cut off, and the sort of tank slowly drained, so we did lose quite a few fish. But generally it is something that was 1 in a million chance of happening. It doesn't really happen very often. But the one thing that's quite dangerous in aquariums that you have to look at is sort of, it's got supersaturation, and is when you've got too much small bubbles of oxygen in the tank. And that is sort of the biggest fear of any person that works in the aquarium, is seeing supersaturation in a tank. And thank God, as far as I know, it hasn't happened here ever, because it is incredibly scary, because I've had to deal with that before.
How does birthdays do with the aquarium?
The birthday parties are sort of divided into 2 bits. We've got an hour and a half with a host, which we take the kids around and we just sort of do silly things with them. So we tell them about the tank, we tell them all the disgusting facts about the animals to get them all sort of worked up, and then we take them around the aquarium. If they've got the choice to go to the 4D cinema, so that's just sort of the cinema we've got, and it has sort of water splashes and air and like leg ticklers, so it's kind of scares them a little bit, which is always good. And then they spend another hour and a half in with a cafe, so they have their meal and they can go play in the play area. Then if they choose to, they can go back in and have a wander around the aquarium by themselves. But then depending on the time, so if we've got a birthday party that will be in at the same time as the dive, we'll ask the birthday child if they do want to see the dive, so we'll take them and see that. We also do some art and crafts with them, so we get them to make some hats and like birthday party hats for them to sort of take home and just keep them as a group, because it's very easy to lose children like that if they're all running around like crazy. I don't know, it's quite good being an aquarium host, because obviously if it's not so much a centralised department, we get to do a little bit of everything. So we're allowed to do feeds to show the public, we're allowed to do the talks, we can get a little bit involved in school groups and see how sort of to teach different ages and the different ski stages. So it's not really, because I used to be husbandry, I used to be an aquarist, and that is just take care of the fish, that is the only thing you do. And it is interesting, I love it, but as a host you can sort of broaden out a lot more. It can be involved with pretty much anything in the aquarium, so it's quite good.
What's your name?
My name's Joe.
What do you do in the aquarium?
My job is a host, so I have to talk to people when they come in. I'll show them around the aquarium, show them different tanks, talk about different fish and answer any questions they've got. I'll also do shows, so we've got 3 daily shows. We've got dive show, shark show and turtle show, which I have to perform to people almost. And then we do birthday parties as well, so I'll take a group of children around and show them the fun bits around the aquarium.
And what's your name?
Loveday.
You do the same thing?
I do, yes.
I'll ask a couple of questions. First, how many sharks do you maintain in the tank?
In the Atlantic Ocean tank we have 3 sand tiger sharks and we have 5 nurse sharks, so 8 in total.
Joe, what is the biggest shark you've got?
Our biggest shark is Emily, our female sand tiger shark. She's about 2.8 metres at the moment.
How do sharks navigate? They use the senses mainly. They've got a very good sense of smell, which they'll use over long distances to track down anything that they're interested in, maybe a seal colony or something like that. And they can follow scent trails through the water to get to those. Once they get closer, they start using their eyesight and also their electrical sense, which picks up sort of electrical stimulus in the water given off by muscles.
Joe, what do you feed the sharks?
What do we feed them? We feed them like a selection, so they get a couple of small fish, they might get bib or mackerel, and we also give them squid.
What enrichment is there for the sharks in the aquarium?
Enrichment really for sharks, it's not the same as an octopus where you have to keep them entertained as such, but we do have ways of training sharks to do things that we want them to. So things like our nurse sharks, we train them to come to targets and to sort of certain visual cues to feed. So our nurse sharks will come to a yellow ball and they have to touch their nose on it, follow it, they get a little click and then they get their food. So we can train them and that obviously keeps them more mentally stimulated than not.
What made you start working here?
Well, I started volunteering here because I wanted to do marine biology, and I kind of just fell in love with the place, and I love talking to people, I love talking about the animals, and I just stay here more and more, do more and more work. That's how I got into it really.
What about you?
Same really, I started volunteering and intending to get some experience and then move on into something else, possibly research, but I realised I liked educating people, so I stayed, and 5 years later I'm still here, so I'm off back.
What's your favourite thing about the aquarium then?
Talking to people really, just getting people excited about the animals that I get excited about and sort of passing that on.
When you get into a conversation with someone and you're both really passionate about an animal and you can really go into depth about that animal, and both of you are really excited about it, and it's good fun to be able to talk to people like that.
What animal is most passionate and dear to you?
Maybe not a specific animal. I love the Great Barrier Reef tank here because it's such a massive variety. You've got so many different shapes, sizes and colours, and I love talking to people about that, and there's loads of little cool quirky animals in there which I like to talk about.
What about you?
I really like the local water fish the best, because they're our animals and you can get out and see them just outside the window, so the Eddystone tank and the Plymouth Sound area are my favourites.
Nice, thank you for cooperating.
No, thank you.
Okay.